Innovationize. Modernate. Leaderer. None of these are words, but today they can be, here and all across the world.
Un problème de modèle de croissance.
以国家战略需求为导向。
Und dafür steht die Christlich-Demokratische Union, dafür steht Arm und
They're ready, which means there's just one question. Are you? Everybody has the potential to be innovationators, so why wait? Today starts now.
Good morning, TEDxTampa. That is NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang wielding a cannon that fires t-shirts into a crowd of adoring fans. That is Transformers director Michael Bay standing on stage on behalf of Samsung moments before getting off stage because the teleprompter malfunctioned and he did not know his words. And this is some guy standing on stage in front of the letters AI. These, ladies and gentlemen, are all something called a tech keynote. And today, ladies, gentlemen, but most importantly, shareholders, I'm here to let you know that this form of business presentation is a bloated piece of techno theater that doesn't even come close to getting me aroused anymore. But we can change them. For the better of society, but more importantly, the better of business. Hello, sharks. My name is Dan Toomey. I'm the host of something called Good Work on something called YouTube. For those of you who don't know, YouTube is kind of like if TV had an OnlyFans. And I'm so happy to be talking about my tech keynote gripes right here, the absolute epicenter of business thought leadership. TED, X, Tampa, TEDxTampa, the biggest one. We're here because it's the biggest one. But before we get too into the weeds about tech keynotes, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's first important that we go over some crucial history, right? Business presentations have been an important through line in the history of modern capitalism, from Nikola Tesla using an alternating current to light the Chicago World's Fair to a crowd of awestruck onlookers in 1893, all the way to Pop-Tarts sacrificing and skinning their confetti-flavored mascot at a college football game in 2024. Same exact thing. The point is we need to reach people through innovative business presentation, right? But if we're to look at tech keynotes specifically, well, then I think that there's one man we can point to as the forefather. I think we all know who I'm talking about, right? The Buddha of Silicon Valley. The man who had the vision to define the culture of tech as we know it today. I'm sorry. That's my screensaver. I'm not sure. Can I? Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs. Let me paint the picture for you. Boston, 1984. January, John Hancock Hall. Inside is a general meeting of the Boston Computer Society that's happening. Outside, chicks are going wild, I assume. On stage is a 28-year-old Stephen P. Jobs, the co-founder of Apple Corporation. And he begins his speech by railing against IBM. At the time, the world's preeminent computer company, but according to Jobs, they are a corporate monolith that is determined on dragging society down into a dystopian future. Jobs' antidote to this dystopia? The Macintosh. See, according to Jobs, this personalized computer isn't just a feat of technology. To Jobs, this is Apple's commitment to changing society for the better. That's his message. And immediately, the crowd of dorks goes wild. The Macintosh goes on to sell 70,000 units in its first year, and Apple just found the perfect way to market its products from the very mouth of their co-founder. You see, ladies and gentlemen, this wasn't just a keynote that was delivered. It was something much more important, a Steve note. Each year, Apple would go on to introduce their products through similar presentations, Jobs on stage talking about them, right? Every year. From the iMac in 1998 to the iPhone in 2007, all the way to Jobs' last presentation in 2010 with the iPad. And each of these presentations followed a very similar formula that we're all familiar with today, right? We know this formula. Steve Jobs, in that signature black turtleneck, on a bare, minimalistic stage, talking about his products like they were literally turning water into wine. And it's this formula, ladies and gentlemen, that allowed Apple not just to become a leader in business, but a leader in culture as well. You know, it reminds me, as we say in business, and I'm sure all of you know this, despite Apple's success, as we all like to say, when there is success, there is people who also want to have that success and will do things to imitate you to get that success. It's not the best saying ever, but we do say it. Throughout the 90s, companies would try to create their own tech product launch magic by taking a generous amount of influence from Steve Notes. In fact, I believe that the tech keynote space has become so homogenized that it's created an entirely new category of business presentation. And after reviewing 10,000 hours worth of footage, which does amount to 4 whole keynotes, our team of researchers is ready to put a name to it. And we call it Tech Man on Big Stage. Normally that's standing, but that's fine. You know, perhaps some of you have seen a tech man on big stage before. Maybe some of you have been a tech man on big stage one time in your life yourself. But if you're unsure, here are the qualities that are needed to achieve tech man on big stage. Number 1, be a man. You don't have to be, statistically, it's a man. Number 2, on a stage that is big, usually with a big screen behind you, and you got a weird clicker in your hand, and you're usually saying some type of words like dynamic, connection, innovative, things you'd find in a sex positions handbook. And you do all of this. You do all of this for well over an hour, and I guarantee you, ladies and gentlemen, that you will go from tiny man in audience to tech man on big stage. Now look, you guys all know as well as I do, the 21st century has been overflowing with examples of tech man on big stage. I mean, we all remember Comdex in 2000, right? Or maybe we have Sun Microsystems in 2001 and 2002. Or, you know, maybe you remember Oracle in 2003, Intel in 2004, eBay in 2005, Sony in 2006, Motorola in 2007, Panasonic in 2008, Cisco in 2009, Facebook in 2010, Nintendo in 2011, Blackberry in 2012. They were still a thing. Verizon in 2013, WhatsApp in 2014, Salesforce in 2015, Uber in 2016, NVIDIA in 2017, Sprint in 2018, Google in 2019, Quibi in 2020, a bunch of random crypto companies in 2021, Amazon Web Services in 2022, OpenAI in 2023, AMD in 2024, and me right now in 2025. This has all created a tech keynotes arms race that I believe we're living through today. Conferences are held each year with AI-generated ass names like Consumer Electronics Show and Web Summit that invite us to put our techiest men on the biggest of stages. And if your company is large enough, you have your own yearly developers conference to announce all of your ideas and innovations. Microsoft has one. NVIDIA has NVIDIA GTC. Salesforce has Dreamforce. And even Meta has that one, where everybody has to get into a conference room and watch Mark Zuckerberg skin a deer for an hour on stage. I've been. Food's great. But this arms race, ladies and gentlemen, I believe has created problems. And those problems, I believe, are twofold. The first problem is everybody wants a Steve note. No one has the Steve. Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Jobs is dead. He's as dead as can be. I know it looks like he's alive right there, but that photo was taken before he died. You're not going to be Steve Jobs, neither is your CEO, all right? Stop trying, okay? It's not happening. Give it up. The second problem, I believe, is that many keynotes are just pointless. With the self-imposed yearly deadline to host a keynote, companies run into a litany of problems that we are all an audience to, all right? Maybe you feel like you need to create a product that nobody actually wants, right? Like the metaverse, that's a good example. Or you end up rushing a product to meet some self-imposed deadline of a hype cycle, like the continuously recalled Cybertruck, right? And even if you do have a presentation, they're oftentimes bloated, drawn out, boring, and they tend to have a weird celebrity cameo baked in there, as if Snoop Dogg would help you better advertise your drone food delivery project, you know? Now that I think about it, that's actually the best idea I've said all night. Someone needs to do that. If you take anything from this presentation, make that happen, okay? But look, folks, I'm not here to take away your tech keynotes, okay? I'm here to make them better, all right? And in fact, and this is true, I did talk to PR professionals in the space, in the tech space, to get their advice on how we could improve tech keynotes, and here are some of their answers, all right? They wanted to stay anonymous because I'm assuming they work for half of you. But you know, I think in order to really give you the tools that you need to perfect your tech keynote, then we need to talk to one man who knows more than anybody else in this room. Myself. So let's kick it over to Dan in Las Vegas, who has some exciting developments in the tech keynote space. Dan?
Thanks, Dan, and good morning. I'm Dan, Assistant Project Manager, Vice President of Keynote Research and Development Analytics Platforms, West Coast Night Shift Division. And welcome. If you're watching this, then that means you're on your way to giving your very first keynote. That's great. But before you do, some tips we developed to make sure your address doesn't feel like all the rest. First, celebrities. While tempting to hang out with, celebrities often distract from the product that you're trying to sell, and most likely don't want to be your real-life friend. So next time you're thinking of having a celebrity cameo in your keynote, be sure to ask, are they relevant to what I'm talking about? Do they know about technology? And are they Pitbull? If the answer to all of those questions is no, then go ahead and leave the celebrity cameos aside. Thank you. Next, hand gestures. While giving a keynote, you might feel tempted to move your hands in an eerie, robotic way. Our advice? Stop that. And lastly, we're introducing a new feature never before used in modern keynote presentations. An editor, usually a graduate from some bullshit liberal arts school, an editor will help your tech company know when to host a keynote, for how long, and how many times you should use the word paradigm. With these features, we guarantee your keynote will be one worth watching. All right, that's it for me. Back to you, Dan.
Thanks, Dan. Love Vegas. Not as much as I love Tampa, though. We learned a lot today. We learned about the history of keynotes. We learned about Steve Jobs and the history of the Steve Note. We learned about the keynotes arms race that we find ourselves in today, and we spoke to innovators in the space. And you know, we host these presentations at the start of these conferences, usually to set the tone for the day. And despite all of my razzing about tech keynotes, ladies and gentlemen, it's not like we're going to stop doing them, right? No, I love it up here. Instead, I encourage us all to think about the theme of tonight, lift as you climb, which is something I believe you can't achieve without originality. Originality to inspire others. And I would argue that what we've gone over today shows that in our attempt to capture the same magic that Apple did so many decades ago and get up on here on stage and talk to a big audience of people about our ideas, well, instead of creating a unique voice for ourselves, instead, we have these presentations that end up stilted, bloated, and quite frankly, resembling the very tech dystopia that Steve Jobs warned us about in his very first Steve Note. So I encourage everybody and all of these speakers today, when you get up on stage, use your voice and inspire others to do the same in the name of originality. In other words, don't just be a tech man on big stage. Be a tech you on big stage. Rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for me. Let's get this party started. My name's Dan Toomey. Thank you very much.